This file was not meant to remain open, and yet it found you. You are now entering a recorded field transmission from the Department of Lost Places. This is archive entry 005. The subject of this record is known as the Museum of Lost Childhoods. The department maintains a considerable archive of unusual locations, gardens that remember seasons, stations that preserve departures, orchards devoted to forgotten afternoons. Yet among all documented sites, few inspire more disagreement than the Museum of Lost Childhoods. Not regarding its existence is remarkably well supported. The disagreement concerns its purpose. Some surveyors believe the museum preserves memories. Others insist it preserves perspectives. A minority suggest it preserves neither. That it instead safeguards something far more difficult to define. A way of encountering the world that most people gradually leave behind. The museum is rarely discovered intentionally. Like many locations held within department records, it appears during moments of unexpected transition, most commonly while travelling alone, walking through unfamiliar streets, exploring old buildings, visiting places once known well but not seen for many years. The entrance itself is surprisingly modest. Visitors describe an ordinary doorway, a small archway, a narrow corridor, occasionally a staircase, nothing grand, nothing theatrical, nothing that suggests a museum should exist beyond it. Yet, upon crossing the threshold, visitors consistently report the same sensation, the feeling that everything has become slightly larger, not physically larger, experientially larger. Distances seem greater, ceilings appear higher, rooms feel more expansive. The world acquires a scale that adults rarely encounter, a scale more familiar to children. The department considers this the first indication that a visitor has successfully entered the museum. Unlike conventional museums, there are no maps, no information desks, no admission tickets, no clearly marked exhibits. Instead, visitors wander naturally from one gallery to another, as though the building already knows where they need to go. The first gallery appears in nearly every account. Department researchers refer to it as the room of small discoveries. The room contains countless display cases. Inside each rests an object. Most are entirely ordinary. A feather, a smooth stone, a shell, a button, a stick with an unusual shape, a marble, a leaf pressed between pages. Individually, none possess obvious significance, yet visitors often spend long periods examining them. Not because the objects themselves are remarkable, because they remember a time when such objects could be. A common observation appears throughout witness reports. People do not remember finding these exact items. They remember caring about similar ones. The museum appears less interested in preserving possessions than preserving importance. One surveyor recorded the following note. I had forgotten that there was once a period of my life when finding an interesting stone felt like a genuine discovery. The department continues to regard this statement as highly representative of the museum's function. Further within the building lies a corridor known informally as the Hall of Questions. The corridor is unusually long. Its walls contain thousands of framed cards. Each card displays a single question. Why is the moon following us? Where does the wind go? Can trees recognize people? What lives beyond the horizon? What happens to forgotten dreams? The questions become increasingly unusual as the corridor continues. Some are whimsical, others profound. Many remain unanswered. Visitors frequently report a growing sense of recognition while reading them, not because they know the answers, but because they remember asking similar questions themselves. The museum appears deeply interested in curiosity, particularly the kind that exists before certainty arrives. One remarkable feature of the Hall of Questions is that new cards occasionally appear. Surveyors have documented this phenomenon repeatedly. Questions emerge where none existed moments earlier, always written in the same hand, always directed towards possibility rather than conclusion. The department has never identified the author. Beyond the corridor stands one of the museum's most discussed exhibits, a gallery designated as the Room of Impossible Distances. At first glance, the room appears almost empty. Only a series of windows overlook different landscapes. A school playground, a wooden path, a coastline, a distant hill, a quiet street. Nothing moves, nothing unusual occurs, yet visitors often become unexpectedly emotional while observing the scenes. The reason appears deceptively simple. Each landscape possesses a particular quality. The destinations visible through the windows seem impossibly far away, not geographically, emotionally. The playground feels as distant as another continent, the woodland path as remote as a forgotten century, the hill impossible to reach before sunset. And yet visitors recognize the sensation immediately. It is the geography of childhood, when distances were larger, journeys were adventures, and every destination seemed to exist beyond an entire world. The department believes this gallery preserves scale itself. Not physical scale, perceived scale, the immense size of experience before familiarity reduced it. At the centre of the museum lies its most enigmatic space, a circular chamber known as the Observatory of Wonder. Unlike previous rooms, the observatory contains almost nothing. A domed ceiling, several benches, a vast opening above. Visitors naturally look upward. The sky visible through the aperture changes continuously. Stars, clouds, rain, sunlight, constellations, storms, moonlight, auroras. Every account differs, yet all observers report the same reaction: silence. Not because they are instructed to remain silent, because language feels temporarily unnecessary. One surveyor described the experience as follows: "The observatory reminded me that there was once a time when seeing the night sky felt less like information and more like mystery." The department suspects this observation comes remarkably close to the truth. Perhaps the museum does not preserve childhood at all. Perhaps it preserves wonder. Not innocence, not nostalgia. Wonder. The ability to encounter ordinary things as though they are extraordinary. To ask questions without demanding immediate answers. To stand beneath a sky and feel curiosity before explanation. If so, the museum may represent one of the most important locations currently held within department archives. Near the exit hangs a final exhibit. Simple, unassuming, easy to overlook. A small plaque mounted upon an otherwise empty wall. Unlike most artifacts within the museum, its inscription never changes. Every visitor reads the same words. Nothing displayed here has been lost, only misplaced. The statement appears deceptively simple, yet many visitors remain before it for considerable periods, because by this stage a possibility has begun to emerge. The museum is not preserving something unreachable. It is preserving something recoverable. Not the past, not childhood itself, only certain ways of seeing, certain ways of noticing, certain ways of wondering. Departure from the museum occurs through a doorway few visitors remember entering. One moment they remain within the galleries, the next they find themselves elsewhere, back on a street, a path, a station platform, an ordinary afternoon. The transition is rarely dramatic. The museum seems to understand that departures need not be. The department classifies the Museum of Lost Childhoods as Type, Perceptual Preservation Site, Wonder Archive, Cognitive Heritage Repository, Access Level Rare, most commonly encountered during periods of reflection, change, or unexpected curiosity. Final note from the archivist. Many people assume childhood is valuable because it comes first. The museum proposes a different theory. Perhaps childhood is valuable because it teaches us how to look, how to wonder, how to become fascinated by things adults no longer notice. If that is true, then the purpose of growing older may not be to abandon such things, only to learn how to find them again. This concludes Archive Entry 005. The record is sealed. The galleries remain open. The questions continue to accumulate. End transmission.